Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Joe Citizen Show. This is Roger Homefield. I am Joe Citizen, but so are all of you out there. We're going to need every Joe Citizen to come to the aid of his country. You know, the Joe Citizen Show, it's a siren. We're a siren to warn America of whatever threats we perceive face her from within or without. And this show has made no secret that we just consider it extremely vital that Trump is elected to face all these threats, and that with another 4 years of any Democrat administration, America would just be no more. Now, today we present David Gaubatz, Episode 2. Episode 1 is on joecitizenshow.com. David Gaubatz served 15 years as a top security clearance special agent in the U.S. Air Force's elite Office of Special Investigations. This is his 45th year in counterterrorism. Now, 15 years ago, David Gaubatz wrote this book, Muslim Mafia. If I can reach it here. Muslim Mafia. And Muslim Mafia, it's about his daring sting operation inside of the Muslim Brotherhood offshoot group CAIR, C-A-I-R, exposing their plans on carrying out their grand jihad against America. Now, everything he warned us about in that book, everything has come true. And, of course, he's got more predictions for the future. Are we going to do the same thing, which is nothing? He warned us that we were going to become infiltrated up through our eyeballs, and that's exactly what has happened. Now, in Episode 1, David explained something pretty shocking to most people, but it's got to be heard, and it's got to be repeated over and over and over again because everybody is brainwashed. David explained that Islam is not even a religion. That's right. David says that Islam is not a religion. He says that Islam uses religion simply as a tool to achieve their ultimate goal, being a one-world country under Sharia law. Now, the European Union, they overwhelmed their countries, France, Germany, and the rest, with mass Muslim migration. But David says they came to Europe to take over, not to assimilate. They'd been planning it for hundreds of years. He thinks it could very well be too late for Europe to maintain their culture. And to bring you up to date, they just had elections. I was all bubbly and happy a few weeks ago. Marine Le Pen looked like she was going to win in France, and Geert Wilders, hopefully he will still win in the Netherlands. But lo and behold, they just had elections, and Marine Le Pen slipped to third place. That ain't going to cut it. We'll ask David, though, what he thinks about that. Our reason for being here. It's not an easy task because our objective, which David and I are committed to, is alerting you about jihad in America, how to recognize it, why it is a threat, and how we can stop it. David Gaubatz, welcome back to the Joe Citizen Show.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I don't know. The honor, David, was all mine. I'm the mouth. David Gaubatz is the James Bond of the Mideast. So I'll flip that around. The honor is always mine, David. By the way, I've known David for years. And he is a quiet, spiritual gentleman that loves people, especially children. He wants this world to be safe, and he doesn't want the ugliness that we've all experienced since 9/11 to continue to permeate. And that's really David's, that's his reason for being. David, you and I, we've discussed how the Western civilized mind and Judeo-Christian values make it virtually impossible for us to ever want to, quote, blame a religion. And that this lack of ability to defend ourselves would end up being the demise of Western civilization unless we can change how we see things. But if people could see that Islam really, in fact, is not a religion, then perhaps Western civilization could stand a chance. David, please explain to our audience why Islam is not a religion.
I think that's a good question to start off with, Roger, because when I define something, I'm not defining it. Oh, Dave Gaubatz says Islam is this, or Dave Gaubatz says jihad is this. I'm saying, based on my 45 years of going undercover in Islamic groups at all levels, and studying very, very hard Islam from top to bottom, reading over 2,000 books, interviewing probably 300 to 400 Islamic leaders in mosques. When I give a definition, I'm giving their definition. So when I say Islam is a political, economic, and military ideology that uses religion as a tool to achieve their ultimate goal, that is what they tell me. They, the imams, the Islamic scholars, the manuals they put out to the worshipers, that is exactly what they say, that Islam is not a religion. And something when I hear often, Roger, and I know you and I have talked about it, is when I hear the terms radical Islam, I want to briefly describe not what Dave Gaubatz says radical Islam is, but what Islamic scholars tell me, because I ask these same questions when I go into a mosque. I ask them, and they think that, and I go in as a practicing primarily Sunni Muslim, and they feel that I am dedicated to the core with Islam. And I'll ask them terms, what do you say radical Islam is? And this is what they tell me, Roger. Radical means something extreme or outside of normal. The actions and saying of Hamas, al-Qaeda, and other terror groups are the sayings and doings of the Prophet Muhammad. You will see in Islam as Muhammad desired when you watch Hamas. The actual people who are radical in terms of Islam are the Muslims who identify with Islam, who do not advocate what Prophet Muhammad said or did. Islam calls these people apostates and are subject to death.
Okay, if they do not follow that, they are no longer Muslims. They're no longer proper Muslims, and they are called what's called an apostate, and that's an offense against Sharia law, punishable by death. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. An apostate is someone who left their religion, left Islam.
Somebody that
who
left.
do not advocate for the basic cores, the basic tenets of Islam. They're apostates. Why you're seeing, Roger, Muslims all across the world who kill one another because they believe they are not abiding by what Prophet Muhammad said, and so they are subject to death, and these people are called apostates.
Let me interrupt myself here before I even go on to the next question, David, about Muhammad, because it was brought up the other day that, well, they don't even necessarily just follow the Quran and the Hadith. What they do, though, what they seem to like to do is imitate and be the way Muhammad was, which wasn't necessarily always roses.
Yes, that is Islam, to do and act and you're in your everyday life 24/7, trying to mirror Prophet Muhammad. So the majority of things Prophet Muhammad did are not good for the people. Child marriages, killing homosexuals, never having a Muslim or Jew as a friend, and killing innocent people worldwide who do not abide or accept Islam. Those are very bad things, but in order to be a Muslim, one has to do that, is exactly what imams have told me all across the United States.
Now, the Muslims, when they've come on the show, they've always said, oh, no, in the Quran, no, we cannot kill, we do not kill any innocents. But the key there, ladies and gentlemen, is that they don't consider any infidels to be innocent. But let's hear it from the expert. Do I have that right, David?
You have that exactly right. When they define terrorism, they consider what the United States does in Afghanistan, Syria, and Palestine. That is terrorism. What they are doing is simply fighting a war of oppression, according to them.
David, it was widely accepted that 75 to 80% of all the mosques in the United States were considered to be, quote, radical because of the material they have inside the mosque. But you have recently told me that it's actually all of the mosques, that virtually 100% of the mosques are what we would consider radical. And when we say radical, to us, that means that it's a potential danger. There's a potential of terrorism there. David, do you consider the mosques to be command and control centers as they have been known throughout history? And with shutting them down, would that be a step in the right direction as far as defending America and the West from their from their grand jihad?
Yes, I'll answer that in a couple ways. Mosques are actually sleeper cell headquarters. And what they do in a mosque is they structure their regiments or brigades within a certain area. And shutting down all the mosques would help. I don't think that would ever happen, but I think that would probably reduce the threat in America by 90+%. But when I used to, and this is talking about my 45 years of development in regards to Islam. When I first started studying mosque, I thought that there would be maybe a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be the mosque is pretty safe, a 5 about middle, and a 10 was very, very extreme. You're probably going to see something come out of that particular mosque. After the 45 years, I've come to the conclusion that if in every mosque advocates for their worshipers to do exactly what Prophet Muhammad said to do, including everything that we just discussed a few minutes ago. So if an imam does advocate that, which every mosque advocate that, you will not find an imam who says that Prophet Muhammad was a bad person for killing Christians and Jews. You will never find an imam. So I have now changed the way I grade the mosque. It is dangerous, very dangerous, or extremely dangerous. Any mosque who advocates killing innocent people anywhere in the world can be nothing more than simply, at least, dangerous.
David, do you think that what could precede something as seemingly impossible as far as closing the mosque? We said, wow, that would really be quite a Herculean task. But if Sharia law was outlawed in America, then could the mosques be shut down? And would this be going in the right direction?
Well, that would be a step in the right direction. But remember, Sharia law is Islam. You cannot separate the two. Sharia law covers a Muslim's life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 90% of everything in Sharia law is very peaceful. How do you sleep at night? Which side of your body do you sleep on? How do you take a sip of water if you're out in the desert? Basic things like that. Many of them are very peaceful. But we have to be concerned about the 10%, talking about killing homosexuals, marrying young children as young as 6 years old, which Muhammad did, slavery, and I can keep going on and on and on, killing innocent Christians and Jews worldwide. This happens. So Sharia law is Islam, and of course, if you take Sharia law out of Islam, you no longer have Islam.
You know what part of the problem is, folks, and David, correct me here, and David knows, me included, that everybody was always struggling to try to parse the peaceful Muslims from the radical Muslims, and everybody, including myself, was our first concern was, well, what about the peaceful ones? I mean, look, we Americans are good people. I don't care what crap we've been hearing from some of these left-wing politicians for the last 10 and 20 years, but Americans are great people. And that's why, as people, we do not want to dislike somebody, especially as a group. So our first instinct, instead of protecting ourselves, instead of going after the bad people, our first instinct was to protect the good ones. And I remember when Brigitte Gabriel was on the air, I said, well, what about the peaceful Muslims? He says, well, they're not doing anything, though. They're letting the radicals run the show. And I know I got off into the woods there, David, so just forgive me for that. Now, you said that.
I want to say something about that, because you made a good point, Roger. The majority of people who identify with Islam are good people. Islam says they are no longer Muslim, but 90% of the people who identify with Islam are very good people. They're some of your neighbors, your doctors, friends that you may have. They just do not uphold what Prophet Muhammad said, which, again, as we said, Islam says that these people have left Islam. But there are very good people. But I use an analogy like in the United States. 90% of the people do not want to see what has happened with our own government. We do not want the borders to be open. We do not want babies to be killed in the 9th month of pregnancy, human lives. 90% of the American people do not want that stuff. But it is the 10% who are in control and silence the 90%, and we can do very, very little about what the 10% are saying or doing, and that is sad.
It's very, very important, folks, that you don't get confused and don't misunderstand. David loves people, and he loves a lot of Muslim people. In fact, a lot, or that were former Muslims, apostates, to be exact, what we were talking about. But he's befriended many of them. He's saved many of their lives. He was involved with the lawyer's family that saved Private Jessica Lynch in Iraq. David led a 15-man team to rescue 9 of those family members, and brought them into the United States and invited them to live with him. So this is not an Islamophobe, which that word is completely bogus, but we'll get into that separately. This is a man that loves everybody. He loves any person that's a good person. And all he is saying is that we need to understand the building blocks of it before we can really understand it all. And we have to be willing to understand that to say Sharia compliant Muslim is really excess. What he's saying is that if you're Sharia compliant, you're a Muslim. And if you're not Sharia compliant, you're an apostate. Exactly. But then if we were to say, oh, so the remaining, all those Muslims are bad, the headline would simply be that we're saying all Muslims are bad. We do believe that Sharia compliant Muslims are bad. There's no doubt about that. We're going to get into that I'm going to get into it right now. David, you said that Islam must be taken as a whole, and you cannot pick and choose which piece you want, which piece you don't want. You said child marriage is just one of dozens of bad aspects of Islam. Please tell us what the other bad aspects are as well.
We mentioned some of them, but Prophet Muhammad believed in slavery. Although many people will say, well, he wanted to free slaves. Well, he did not free the slaves. Slavery is still accepted in Islam. Islam advocates for killing homosexuals. And one of the ways you're seeing it across the Middle East with Islamic terror groups is by taking a homosexual, an alleged homosexual, onto the top of the roof and throwing them off. Islam says you should never take a Christian or a Jewish person as your friend. Never, never, never. It doesn't say you can have your neighbor as a friend. It says never take your Christian and Jewish friend or people as friends. And Islam goes on to say, talks about killing innocent Christians and Jews anywhere in the world you may encounter them. That includes inside of America. And one of the people I think the audience should study would be Imam Siraj Wahaj out of Brooklyn, New York. Everything I just talked about never taking Christians and Jews as friends, are lectures that he has gave on Fridays. Everything that I just talked about comes directly from a very senior imam in America. Nothing happens on the Sunni side of Islam in America without Siraj Wahaj approving and concurring for it.
Is he the one that's known to be the Uzi Imam?
He is, and his son was arrested for some very violent things. I think it was in New Mexico.
You know, what I don't understand, David, everybody gets, about hate speech, this and that. And yet, there's hate speech going on every Friday in many of these mosques, just as you described from Siraj Wahaj. I don't understand why we put up with that. I can't for the life of me understand why that's legal. And that's why it just seems to me, it seems reasonable to outlaw Sharia law, because Sharia law dictates that it must replace the Constitution, that there is no coexistence. It's not a matter of saying, oh, we'll make room for you, Islam. It's not us saying that. It's them. It's them saying it. There's no room for anybody else but them. Could you pick that up, David?
No, that is true. They say that you should not assimilate inside America. You should not assimilate inside France, Germany, the Netherlands, England, etc., etc. Imam Siraj Wahaj, one of his sayings was that in order to protect Islam in America, that the imams need to start bringing gang members like the Bloods and the Crips into the mosque. He says, bring these gang members into the mosque, teach them Islam, teach them Sharia, and then give them an Uzi and put them back onto the street, an Uzi and machine gun, and then put them back onto the streets, and then they will protect Islam and its ideology.
You said that most people believe we cannot defeat an ideology, and you know that it looked very bad for Europe. You went so far as to say you really thought they passed the point of no return. It is too late for them, and that what we're really holding on to now is for America to survive and keep her culture. But then you said that you knew how to defeat this ideology, being Islam. So, David, if we could defeat the ideology of Islam, would that not slay the dragon and save the world?
Yes, and again, a very good point, Roger, because I have said that ideologies can and have been defeated. Many people, many experts say that an ideology cannot be defeated. Well, we defeated it basically with Nazi Germany. When people hear about Nazis, you get a sour taste on your tongue when the word Nazi comes up. When someone talks about the KKK, immediately you get a sour taste in your mouth that says, that's bad. That's bad. And that's exactly what we've got to do with an ideology that advocates hurting innocent young girls, slavery, homosexual, and all the other things we talked about. There's got to be a time in America and throughout the world that when you talk about Islam and Sharia law, you get that sour taste in the mouth. And it's where we can no longer sugarcoat Islam. We cannot say that they're very, very good Muslims. My neighbor is a Muslim. We've got to stop that. Your neighbor is probably a good person if they're identified with Islam. It's because they have rejected Muhammad. And again, they are apostates. We can defeat the ideology, but it's going to take many, many steps in order to do that. And I'm unsure at this point if we can do that, if we have the willpower to do that.
Dave, what are some of the other aspects? I know that like a woman can't charge that she's been raped unless she has 4 witnesses. What are some of these other jewels that people don't want to be surprised by? If you can let them know now out hands, just what countries are in store for should they really fall to Islamic rule?
Well, I've been in some mosques where there are actually form letters by the imam for the worshipers talking about it is okay to beat their wives. Please, they are saying to the worshipers, do not report these incidents to police, because Prophet Muhammad said that it is okay for a man to beat his wife. It is okay for a good Muslim to marry a young 6-year-old girl. It is okay for them anywhere in the world to kill a homosexual, and very drastic types manners that they actually kill the innocent person. So we have got to start accepting that what is taught in a mosque is dangerous not only to America but to the world.
And so really simply by exposing that, the best way to defeat the ideology is to expose what the ideology actually is. Is that right, David?
That's right. We've got to get the media, all the media from the left and the right, to start exposing just only facts and evidence. Don't make up anything, which the media is good at doing that. Don't do that. Just use facts and evidence. Talk about all the honor killings in America in regards to Islam. They never report on the honor killings within Islam. In the mosque, they consider it to be legal and what Muhammad wanted. If a daughter or a wife goes outside of their norms, then they are subject to being killed. And it happens across America.
It's happened a lot, the honor killings in America.
It's happening today and tomorrow.
Now, you say that the votes are still there, that the votes were even there to oust the Islamists, even in Europe, but they shoot themselves in the foot. And we discussed, is it Stockholm syndrome? And then I was going to ask you about the politicians in America. What are they doing besides nothing? Are they in fear? Are they ignorant? Are they willfully ignorant about all of this, which makes no sense to me that they would be? Are they shaking in their boots? So what's it going to take for our politicians to understand that this really is a threat to the country, along with all the others we've got, and do something about it. Like why aren't we discussing what Sharia law is in America and how that's completely contrary to the Constitution and in fact calls for its overthrow?
Yeah, well, a good question. We are seeing that currently today. And when you mentioned the Stockholm Syndrome, I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that they are very scared of identifying with such a threat as Islamic terrorists. They feel they may become the targets. They would prefer to just align themselves with their enemy instead of facing threats for themselves and their families. But I also think that there are many politicians who do 100% understand the threat of Islam, but politics is stepping in where they can never come out and say, such as what we've talked about today, that Islam is dangerous. It's dangerous to the world. They will still continue saying, well, it's a few extremists. You got the al-Qaeda and ISIS and Hamas, some extremes, but they would never come out and say that Islam, the ideology itself, is dangerous or Sharia is dangerous. They've got to start doing that. I use another analogy in the United States with President Biden, an 81-year-old man who apparently, I'm no expert, many experts do consider that he's got some health problems and he's probably not fit to be the president of the United States. But for years and years, we've had the media who will still side and say that he is, although they know the truth. And that's the same with most politicians. Most of them know the truth, but it comes down to politics. Most politicians will say that Saudi Arabia are the friends of the Americans. They are our allies. The Saudis are not the friends of Americans. So some of the reasons they won't step forward, it comes from being scared, but it also comes from money. Saudi Arabia pumps billions of dollars into America, and many politicians are not going to say anything negative about Saudi. You will hear them talk about al-Qaeda and ISIS, etc., but you never hear them talk negatively about the Saudi government.
Well, so much Islamist money has come into the country to rearrange our face for us, such as the billions and billions and billions of dollars that went to the universities, and plus what you're saying. And now it's coming out that Iran has been sponsoring these pro-Hamas riots across the country. And we just can't allow this to continue, folks. We've got to, at some time, put our feet down and grow a pair. Look, I don't like confrontation, but damn it, are we going to let them rule us on our own soil? That's what it's going to come down to. Am I being melodramatic, David?
No, you're not being too dramatic. You're talking exactly. And really, Roger, the audience needs to know it's not you or I or most of the listeners who this is going to affect. It's going to affect the children in America. Our children is who it's going to affect. I want to really close with one piece on my part about what I found out in Saudi plus Iraq in 2003. When I got sent to Iraq at the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom, I was the first civilian federal agent to go in, and one of my duties was to interrogate al-Qaeda and Saddam Fedayeen. Immediately, I started asking these terrorists, I asked them, what is going to be the next type of attack in America after 9/11? And the majority told me that they were going to go after the hearts of the American people. And I kind of knew what that was, but I wanted them to clarify. And they did. They said the hearts of the American people are our children. And they were going to go after the hearts of the American people in our school systems, starting from kindergarten all the way through university. Now, that was 2003. This is 2024, 21 years ago. Who are the people out on the streets causing the riots and supporting an Islamic terror group that kills children? You college students. Why? Because they've been indoctrinated for the last 20 years as al-Qaeda and other terrorist organizations said they were going to do, and now you're seeing the results. You're seeing it in the streets of America.
David, what's your prediction for the next 10 or 15 years if we continue to sit on our thumbs?
It's only going to get worse. We're going to start losing our children more and more because they have been indoctrinated, and our children more and more over the years are going to become even more violent than we see in Antifa and some of the other groups. It's going to be violence against parents, violence against their other relatives, violence against America. They're going to come out more and more saying they hate America. They do hate America, and so do Islamic terror groups. They hate this country, and that's what they're teaching our children to do.
It's quite a bit for anybody to process, even myself, and I've been doing nothing but this, it seems, since about 20 years, and it still really seems kind of surrealistic to be talking about it, and yet we see ourselves plodding along in this slow motion towards this inevitable demise of our country and our culture if we don't address it.
Sure.
All right, Dave Gaubatz, thanks so much for being with us. We'll have you back right away for episode 3.
Thank you so much, Roger.
He really is the James Bond of the Mideast. I don't exaggerate when I say that one bit. Look, we're not selling you anything. We don't want anything. We're just asking you to keep an open mind. And after you keep an open mind, we're just asking you to get involved. You don't have to do anything tremendous necessarily, but just look, we have to start talking about this. It's not comfortable and it's not fun. And that's why nothing's happened to this point. But our politicians, it's their job. It's their job. And so I guess our job is to hold their feet to the fire. Look, some really good things are happening. Trump came out with this 20-point platform. Number 1, seal the border, carry out deportation, end inflation, regain energy independence, stop outsourcing our manufacturing, made in America, do that again, large tax cuts, defend all of our constitutional rights, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and the Mideast, and build an Iron Dome missile defense shield over America. That's just fantastic. End the weaponization of our government, demolish the foreign drug cartels, crush gang violence, lock up violent offenders, rebuild our cities. My goodness, you go to Japan or someplace, you see the way their cities are incredible, and ours, not so much. They really do need to be rebuilt, literally. Strengthen and modernize our military. Keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. That's critically important. Fight for and protect Social Security. This is Trump's top 20 here. Cancel the electric vehicle mandate. Cut federal funding for any school that's pushing racial or sexual or political content on our children. Keep men out of women's sports. Deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Secure our elections, same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, proof of citizenship. Unite our country by bringing it to high levels of success. No parent wants to live to see their child die, and no patriot wants to live to see America die. We can never let that happen. This is the Joe Citizen Show. I'm Roger Homefield. Thank you for being with us.
Bye-bye, so long, farewell. Bye-bye, so long. See you in November at the polls where we are gonna have our say. Better see you in November. It's our chance to throw these fools away. Counting the days till we're rid of you. Counting the hours and the minutes too. Bye-bye, so long, farewell. Bye-bye, so long. Bye-bye, so long, farewell. Bye-bye. bye, so long. Bye bye.